YouTube fandom community, Pink Floyd fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about Pink Floyd's 1975 album, Wish You Were Here. One of my favorite Pink Floyd albums. It's grand, it's sprawling, it's diverse, it's cold, it's also full of heart. They really seem to manage to cover a lot of emotions on this album, and several key topics that were, the beginnings of the band are definitely incorporated into this record for sure. This record came to be because after Dark Side of the Moon came out and really took off, I mean, it exploded the band. They were really, really well known with Dark Side of the Moon. Their tours were getting bigger, the light shows were becoming more and more of a thing. They definitely had that follow-up syndrome of like, oh man, what do we do next? Like, how do we follow this up? What do we do next? And then to go further back from that, after Sid left, or was forced to leave, or quit, or whatever you might want to call it, in 1968, they really had not a hard time at first, but they kind of just changed their path. Because with Sid, he was writing a lot of the songs and writing a lot of the lyrics and everything else, and the other guys were too, but they ended up doing a lot of like soundtrack work, and then coming out with albums of really amazing instrumental pieces. And the build-up to what became Dark Side of the Moon was just a couple of years of songwriting and crafting their work and figuring out who they were without Sid and becoming their own band as themselves. Not like Sid was Pink Floyd, but he was a big part of it for a couple of years there. So, with this, as they entered Abbey Road Studios, or EMI, or whatever you want to call it, to cut the follow-up to Dark Side of the Moon, they were very much like, what are we going to do? They started jamming out stuff. They had a couple of songs here and there, and nothing really felt right. They would spend a long time in there kind of messing with things, jamming, coming up with ideas, and nothing was really happening. And then something sort of sparked them to write about Sid after hearing a couple of these guitar fragments that Dave was writing, and sort of spurred some lyrics from Roger. And that's part of it. I'm sure there was more to it besides that. But basically, as they were jamming, coming up with stuff that eventually would become Shine On You Crazy Diamond, these lyrics came out that just sort of reflected Sid. And then the rest of the album sort of followed this whole path of the early years. Becoming a band, getting famous, signing your first record contracts, that theme of the early days of a band is this album, and kind of getting sucked into that world, and some of the madness that it might bring on in that, and how to sustain yourself and not go totally crazy, because you're sort of, especially in those days, major labels were the only way to get popular, the only way to go. You weren't like gonna get famous on Facebook or Bandcamp or any of the SoundCloud or any of the stuff that's around now. This doesn't work that way. So back then, major labels were the way you got your record out there. So you basically had to sell yourself to the machine. And so they went with this theme. Shine On You Crazy Diamond was written about Sid. They hadn't seen him in a few years, not since they helped him out with his Barrett album in 1970 and 71. So it had been some time since they had seen him, and I think they were just kind of thinking about him. And so they started writing this song, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, and the lyrics are so poetic and so poignant. They're extremely heartfelt, and it just talks about, hey, we miss you, man. Like, hope you're doing okay wherever you are. And this song is incredibly long, but the build-up, the tension, the dynamics, the changes, there's so many elements of this track, and, basically, we've jumped in at this point, so I'm talking about track one here. It's so moving of a song, and I really enjoy this track so much. It changes so subtly, and the changes are so effective. So like, you get some organ stuff, then some guitars come in, a little bit of bass, then the drums come thundering in, then you get that I mean, what an amazing four-note little riff. It's so striking, and that theme, basically carries the entire essence of all these parts of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. This, operatic theme or something. It's a fascinating song, and also the use of emptiness is just incredible. The echoing effects, the production on this album is so tight. I love the drums on this album. Nick Mason is amazing on this with either how sparse he can play or where he fills in. He's an incredible drummer. his work on this album is pure magic. Everyone's work on this album is pure magic. It's easily one of the best things they ever made. Um, but yeah, the atmosphere of this track at times feels empty. At times it feels inquisitive, sort of curious of like what if, and sort of like kind of wandering in your own head. Um, and you know, when the voices come on, remember when you were young, you shine like the sun. Shine on, you crazy diamond. What an amazing line, and the way it's sung with the backup vocal singers. Um, I mean, the emotion, the impact, the drama, the grand sweepingness of it all, it captures your attention, and it's such a well written song. If you're gonna write a long song, it's gotta be good, and it's gotta capture your attention the whole time. You can't just write a drony piece of nothing just for the hell of it to make it long. This track tells a story through music and emotion, and it's absolutely incredible. It's what a tribute. Um, you know, the amount of sadness and longing in this song, it's just absolute poetry. Um, yeah, crazy song. And as they were recording this, that there's that famous story of, you know, they came in one day to the studio and they saw this, you know, sort of chubbier dude with no hair kind of looking around their amps, and they thought, oh, it must be someone who works for EMI just checking stuff out. And they went about their business. And then a few minutes later, this guy comes up to the control room with them, and all of a sudden they're like, who the heck is this? And at one point, someone looked over and said, hey, I think that's Sid. And sure enough, it was Sid. And there's that classic picture of him where he's just wearing this white shirt. He definitely gained a few pounds, and he shaved all his hair off, he shaved his eyebrows off. And apparently some people cried, some people were just completely startled. It must have been a trip to see him there as they were recording that exact song about him. So who knows how that sort of magic struck. But and then I guess there was a wedding reception after that for Dave Gilmour, who just recently got married, and Sid came along and hung out for a little while, and they never saw him ever again. I guess Roger bumped into him at a store a couple years later, but beyond that, they never saw him ever again. So it's really, really sad. Yeah, absolutely amazing track. It really captures a spirit and a mood that just grabs you. Welcome to the Machine is full of industrial sounds, engines whirring, static, droning sounds. It literally sounds like you're inside a cranky old machine. The vocals here sound so uncertain and a little scared or possibly paranoid, but also tired at the same time. It sounds like a weary old worker kind of like, hey, welcome to the machine. Come on in. Everything on this song just feels miserable. It feels so hopeless, so sterile and cold. And it's a song about entering the music industry and giving up all your creative ambitions to get a paycheck because someone's going to go push your album and, you know, sort of enter you into the world of the music industry, which is continued on the next song for sure. You know, and all the struggles you might endure as you do that. Because you might be a band on your own, and then the second you go to the music industry, you know, the record companies probably tell you what to play, or how to play it, or what to wear, or how to do your hair. So it becomes a thing. And whereas it was just fun at first, now it's a thing. But the overall track just feels, and I mean this in the mood it's provided, but it feels heartless, which I think is an interesting way to make a track, because the song itself is full of heart and how it delivers its heartless feel. Does that make sense? It doesn't feel like a soulless song, but it's trying to give you the feeling of what it might be like to experience this heartless sort of world. Interesting frozen tundra of misery of a track. Have a Cigar, this Roy Harper takes lead on this one because both Roger and Dave couldn't get down the vocals, and Roy was hanging out with them that day and said, I'll do it. And he came in and nailed it. His vocals on this were fantastic. And I also like that an outsider sings this one, especially with lines like, oh, by the way, which one's pink? You know, sort of playing the record executive guy, having it not be one of the Pink Floyd members, kind of drives home the story more of the whole, you know, talking to the bigwig. Come on, sit down, boys, have a cigar, you're going to go far. You know, it's that kind of, that talk. So it's definitely a continuation of Welcome to the Machine. You know, it's all about the greed of it all. You know, you're going to ride on the gravy train. But I love the tight musicianship on this one. The synthesizers are awesome. The drumming here is a little bit funky, which is real cool. It's a cool time signature for a song. The hi-hat combination on the snare or the hi-hat combination with the snare is so fun. Yeah, another absolute classic track. And then you get "Wish You Were Here," and this is easily one of the most well-known Pink Floyd songs ever, if not their most Pink Floyd song, if not their most well-known. And this track in particular, a lot of the guys in the band have not said that this is specifically about Sid, that it could be about anybody. It's left to be open to interpretation and be a little ambiguous. So you can kind of interpret it for yourself, interpret it to maybe someone in your own life that you long for the old days kind of thing. So who knows? We'll never know if it's really about Sid or not. But this whole song is truly magical. From that intro that sounds like it's off an old radio, then the guitars come in, and the warmth on the way those things are played is so endearing and touching, really. And then once it starts to break through, almost like sunshine coming through, Roger and Dave's vocals just blend so amazingly together on this track. And the verses are sung so passionately, and if it's not sung about a person in particular, they must have had somebody in mind when they sang it, because those lyrics are so touching and so pulling at your heartstrings. Just an amazing, amazing song. It's timeless. This song doesn't feel like it exists in a certain period of time. For me, I was born way after this song came out, but it doesn't sound like the 70s, or it doesn't sound like it came from any sort of certain era. It just sort of exists, and I think that's really cool. And the chorus itself is so catchy and really sums up a lot of what life can be about. Sort of losing touch with people, or wishing you could be with someone at a certain point in your life when you're celebrating, or even if you're down, you just want someone to be there really to cheer you on or help you up. It's a fascinating track, and it's just so full of soul, and I just love that song. I can't say enough good things about "Wish You Were Here." Then "Shine On You Crazy Diamond," the rest of the album here. This particular part of "Shine On" is really cool because it kind of opens up as just a jam again, almost like it's lost in a dream, like a real fuzzy, not psychedelic dream, but a little more of a proggy dream, which is, I guess, is kind of where psychedelic music became. It became more of a prog thing. Really long hanging guitar leads in this one, really thick synth vibes, and some heavier bass. And it gets a little bit crazier at times before it cools down, going right back into that guitar refrain and repeating some lines from the first part of "Shine On," the chorus again. And then we go back to the jamming and the progginess, and the ending is much more gentler and calmer, almost as if the characters, or the protagonist, or however you want to call it, is finding a resolve. And it's the only time in this album that something sounds legitimately happy. Not just in a wistful way or a nostalgic way, but almost in a positive, optimistic, going forward kind of way. Which is really the first time you hear something like that on this album. Everything else, especially, the desperate, unforgiving world of "Welcome to the Machine," and sort of the bleak emptiness of the first part of "Shine On You Crazy Diamond." So to have some sort of resolve at the end gives it a finish, which is absolutely fascinating. But yeah, incredible album. This really was a guy they set on fire. It's a stuntman who they filmed this, I think, at the Universal parking lot. Filmed shot the picture for it. But that dude was really on fire. They did like 13 or 14 clicks to get the right picture, but unbelievable image. This happens to be a reissue, probably from the early 80s, late 70s, because there's a barcode up there. So not an original. The original one actually came with a black sleeve with the sticker on there. But you got the inside here with the lyrics, which is really cool to have the words on there, and just information about recording it and all that. January to July 1975. All lyrics by Roger Waters, produced by Pink Floyd. Another shot in the back. Storm did that one again there. It's their buddy from the old days. He did a lot of their artwork over the years. On the Columbia label, here's the logo. Label. Yeah, so it had been a while since I've played this thing, and I got it back in high school, because that's what you do when you're in high school, you listen to Pink Floyd. So it had been a number of years since I really sat down with this thing, and I've played this thing for like a week straight. This has been like the only thing I've been listening to for a while, because I really wanted to get inside it and just kind of rediscover it. And it is an absolutely brilliant album. For as much popularity that it has, for as much, as much as you see this on like, best of sets or lists of albums from the 70s or best of Pink Floyd or whatever, this really does stand up. It's an absolute amazing album. I would give this thing a 9 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10. It's pretty darn close to being a perfect album. And the thing is, like, I really like Pink Floyd. I don't think I'd call them my favorite band or one of my favorite bands, but I really enjoy their music a lot. Probably 15 years ago, I would have said, yeah, they're probably one of my favorite bands, but I don't listen to them as much as I used to. Not to say I don't like them. I just listen to other stuff. So when I do put stuff like this on, not only does it take me back to high school, but hearing it now, sort of with fresh ears, because it's been a while, was such a trip. It was an absolute blast to listen to this thing and get sucked into that world again. And then reading the backstory about it again. Fascinating era of the band. Fascinating that Sid was around while they were recording the song about him. The whole thing is absolutely amazing. So yeah, 9 or 10 out of 10. It's a really highly rated up there album for me. Love this thing. So that's it. Really curious to hear your thoughts on this thing as well. And let's talk about some Pink Floyd. So that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here. And yeah, 9 or 10 out of 10. I can't pick. But that's it. We'll talk about this in the comments here. And that's it. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.